I want to take a couple minutes to talk about two recent releases from Kino Lorber that were sent to me for review purposes. The films don't really have a whole lot to do with each other. They were made, some 35 years apart, but they do have some things in common as far as their thematic material, a little bit on the heavy side. The first one I want to talk about is Everything Went Fine. This is a 2020 release directed by Francois Ozon, starring Sophie Marceau. Charlotte Rampling has a small but important part, and Hana Shigula is in it. And those are the names that kind of got my attention with this particular film and story. I really appreciate Francois Ozon. I think he's a director I want to see more of his work. He kind of reminds me of the Dardenne brothers in some ways. Reality-based films that touch on some of the more poignant and sensitive issues of life. And this one has to do with kind of end of life issues with a woman, the Sophie Marceau lead character. You can see she's kissing an old man on the forehead, and yes, that is her father, who's had a stroke and is having a very difficult time recovering from it, and is thinking maybe he just does not want to live in this new condition that he finds himself in. He's been a prominent art collector and lived a very comfortable life, a prestigious figure, and is just not ready to sort of live a compromised, hobbled life as he finds his abilities to just move and communicate and express and just do the things that he's used to, uh, really pretty much impossible. And he lives in France, where euthanasia or intentional end of life activities are still legally forbidden. But in Switzerland, there is that possibility. He can go to a clinic and end his life on his own terms. And his mission is to enlist his daughter to help him out in this process. So I won't say a whole lot more about how the movie, unfolds as far as its plot is concerned, but it's a very well executed portrayal of that dilemma, that situation that people find themselves in. And I think Ozone does a good job of allowing the viewer to draw their own conclusions as far as the ethics and the propriety and all of that. Um, and I don't really want to color the outcome of the movie any further than that. But I believe it's again it's an issue that perhaps may not be ranking very much high up on the entertainment scale if you're looking for kind of a good time or even a movie that's kind of got some kind of cinematic flourish. This is pretty grounded. It's well made, and the acting is excellent. I really love the Hana Shigula appearance. She plays a person who's associated with the clinic. She's not like the director, but she's part of it, and she kind of does some of the explanation of how that process works. She is not the dazzling, radiant beauty on the surface that she once was in the early films of Rainer Werner Fassbinder, but she's still beautiful in her own way at this more advanced stage of life. So, a quality release. If you like Ozone, of the cast members that I've mentioned draw your interest, check this out. Another one that kind of came more recently, I think this might be more of a July release or maybe late June. Duet for One. This is a 1986 film starring Julie Andrews, of all people. Alan Bates plays her husband, Max von Sydow, is in it. And also very young Rupert Everett and Liam Neeson. So it's a really excellent cast. It's a film that I was not really familiar with. But, Julie Andrews in a serious drama. Um, you know, she is an iconic presence and personality for me. I grew up as a kid watching Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music when they were sort of like new releases, right? And those both of those soundtracks and Julie Andrews, her poise, her presence, practically perfect in every way. That's the line from Mary Poppins. That just made a very powerful, deep impression on me when I was a very young person. So I was very eager to see her in this role. She plays a concert violinist who is diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and we see her journey through this really tragic and horrible disease where, she does not have the control over her fingers that she once did. And she's in the movie, an elite violinist. She plays the Royal Albert Hall, and she's recorded, and she's like seen as the very cream of the crop as far as virtuoso violinists are concerned. And now that gift, that talent has been taken from her at a young age. She's also going through marital problems as her husband is kind of having an affair right under her nose. And she's just going through the struggles of adjusting to this new life. Max von Sydow is her therapist. He's a psychiatrist, and he's been, you know, she's been referred to him by her husband to talk through some of her feelings of a despair and regret, and the hostility of fate that puts her in this terrible and inescapable situation. So again, two movies that are pretty heavy. You could even say they're downers. You've got to have to be in the right mood to enjoy and appreciate them. They both deal with very difficult subjects as far as what to do when life kind of pulls the rug out from underneath you, and you are facing a dilemma that you do anything to make it go away and just to change the outcome, and yet you cannot. So excellent casts, fantastic windows into dimensions of their acting talent that maybe you hadn't seen before. Even Max von Sydow as a psychiatrist, this is a kind of in his middle era, right? As well after his collaborations with Bergman had run their course. This is '86. He has some really good turns, and there's some really wonderful exchanges between Max von Sydow and Julie Andrews. I mean, just putting those two in the same scene together as a shrink and his patient, some great possibilities, and I think they realize them very well. So, a couple Kino Lorber Blu-rays that I'll recommend, with just a bit of a caveat saying these are not going to be probably your favorite movies or discs that you spin with the regular, but they're very worthwhile, and I really appreciate the opportunity to see some excellent actors taking on some very challenging material.